Hello, I'm Chris Lemaire. I'm a programmer at the American Cinematheque, and I'm thrilled to present this Q&A for Promising Young Woman, which is nominated for 5 Academy Awards this year, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress in a Leading Role, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. And we're very excited to have the 4 nominees joining us for this Q&A, including the editor, Frédéric Thoraval, producer, Josey McNamara, star Carey Mulligan, and the writer-director, Emerald Fennell. Our moderator is Jacqueline Coley, who is a film journalist and also the editor for Rotten Tomatoes. So I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Jacqueline and welcome the 4 panelists.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Coley. I'm the awards editor at Rotten Tomatoes, and it is my distinct pleasure to moderate this conversation with the cast and filmmakers of an incredible film, Promising Young Woman. Hello, everyone.
Hiya.
Hello.
Well, we are fresh off some incredible news. So I just want to recap, Oscar nominations for every single person on here: editing, actress, best picture, and also screenplay. And Emerald, a WGA win for best original screenplay. I just want to make sure we just start off with the congratulations. And there might be even more in the time frame before folks get to see this. So incredible. It's been so nuts. I do have to ask you, Emerald, where you were Oscars morning, because I know that you're in a different time zone. Like, this has to be like a different situation when you're dealing with it in the UK.
It is great. I mean, what I got, I'm afraid, completely confounded by the change of daylight savings time. So what I had in my diary was an hour late. And actually, I was on a work call for the first announcements, and weirdly the person who told me was Josh O'Connor, because he said, congratulations, and I said, what, on what? And he was like, somebody else should be telling you this. And then Chris ran in, my husband, and said, it's on, and I had to say on the business call probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever said in my life, which was, I'm so sorry, I have to go, I think I've just been nominated for an Oscar. They were like, sure, okay, well, off you go then. So it was a bit of a disaster for me.
When the Globes came out, weren't you in a Starbucks as well, because you forgot?
I was in Costa.
Sorry.
And I hadn't forgotten. Costa is slightly, it's a sort of
you were intentionally going underground, but when I said to you, you're going to watch the Oscar nominations, you were like, no, I'm going to Costa.
Well, that was the Golden Globes. I said, I'm going to go to Costa, so I don't, because it just seemed too far-fetched that, it's just so amazing for this film to get nominated that I couldn't bear to watch it and be and feel everyone's disappointed eyes on me. So by everyone, I mean my toddler and my husband.
Which we're going to get to too, because I think it's come out now, but again, doing this very pregnant, I still think you should get an extra award just for that. I'm serious. But Josey, this film has been through such a, I would say, journey. I was there at the Sundance premiere back when we could all sit together and be in rooms together. And I remember that reaction, even with the Sundance crowd. And I remember Emerald coming afterwards to do the Q&A and talk about it. And I just wonder if you've seen the reaction shift, because you guys have had some incredible moments, I'm sure, with both Q&As, also with the first initial screening. It started with a fist fight, and now you have folks probably going to be dressing up as Cassie for Halloween this year. The film's reaction has been through this incredible journey. And I wonder if you could sort of break folks down on how it shifted over the few months.
Well, I think from that, that initial screening where obviously there was a great reaction from us, because I think we always knew that it would be kind of a roller coaster of emotions for people watching the movie. So I think to get all those different reactions in our test screening was kind of, I think we felt positive about it because the movie was hitting in the way we wanted it to, and we wanted people to have those conversations. And I think that's why we were so happy that people got to see it at the cinema, whether it was at Sundance or, some people seeing it on the big screen, because it's that kind of shared experience. And the thing I found is even during the pandemic, people have still found a way to kind of communicate about the movie, whether it's via social media or other platforms. So I think that shared experience has stayed the same, which I think is why the movie has carried over so well, that it is such a one you want to talk about. And yeah, I'm just really happy that all those different reactions have kind of come through.
Carey, I mean, I don't know, we're all in isolation, but you know, as Josey said, we still have social media, you still have people reaching out. I'm wondering, is there a particular comment or reaction? Emerald's talking about, you know, directors sort of saying, oh, hi, I saw it and stuff like that. Have you had anyone that you found to be particularly memorable that someone spoke to you? Because I'm sure there's a lot of folks speaking to you as survivors or people that have been near survivors. It's one of those films where I talk to actors about this. People maybe want to tell you their story after seeing it.
Yeah, I definitely had a bit of that in the press run for it. Sort of people that I was speaking to wanted to share stuff that, you know, and they'd found it particularly impactful because of their own experience. I don't know if I've had, I mean, the truth is, outside of journalists and critics and, you know, not that many people I know have seen it still, you know. So it's, you know, yeah, it's a sort of slightly odd experience doing it like this because we, you know, it's but no, I mean, people have been more people have probably contacted me about this than all of the films I've ever done put together. You know, which is lovely, you know. So that's been really exciting. It's also my goal in life is to make a film that my brother likes, and he's very hard to please. And this is not where I thought I would win that. And he was just crazy for the film. He loved it. He sort of drives in the car listening to the soundtrack now. And he's an ex-military guy who works in finance, and he's just obsessed with the film. He thinks it's brilliant. He thinks Emerald's a genius. And so that feels like a big win for me.
Yeah, we're going to get to talk about that, especially because I do think, yeah, there's some interesting things where I think people are reassessing a lot of things having seen it, but then also the fans of this movie, it's everyone. My father, who's a retired military guy in his late 60s, is all about it. And so I'm like, I feel like the gamut of folks that are into this is so great, which is why it's been having this incredible reaction. It's why it's getting nominated. It's why people are talking about it. One of the things they're talking about is the ending, which I'm not going to get too explicit about, but with you, Fred, I want to talk about the editing of the wedding scene, which is sort of the culmination of everything. And when I was watching it again last night, I was thinking about what discussions you and Emerald maybe had, because there's so many great choices of who to look for in this moment when this musical maybe hits here, or whose face to focus in on this, and just like the background work. So yeah, just talk about how y'all found the rhythm of that scene, because it's brilliant. I went back and watched that scene like twice to kind of just look at where the cuts were and where the camera was.
The thing on that scene is that the setup was very clear, and we had a path already. So we built the sequence to see where we needed to hit that moment with the messages, where we need, on which phase we need to be, on which moment when some people are reacting, and so we had all that kind of elements to work with, and we tried several music to adjust each time to make sure that we were feeling what and eating the points that we need to eat at that moment. So it was some readjusting all the time and making sure that we were on the good people at the good time. But it was a very fun process on this one, and it was great to kind of build until we found that everything clicks at once. But the thing is, yeah, we can't really talk about it. It's kind of
I mean, they should see it.
I'm sorry. I think Fred had to cut that last sequence to 60 songs, probably. You've never, and also because, as he says, it was really specific for us to know if it worked. Everything needed to be readjusted to the song. So we went through a ton. One of Fred's brilliant ideas was "I've Had the Time of My Life," which was there for a long time.
I quite want to see that version.
I think we've probably still got it somewhere. Say we, Fred. It was to, it was just trying to find that thing that was all of the things Fred said, that, it's poignant and it's about love and it's about friendship, but it's also, cathartic and has the sort of same like wryness of everything else in the film. And I've Had the Time of My Life was really funny, and it felt very Cassie, but it also undercut too much of the emotion, we thought. But like, yeah, that was cut a bajillion times, I think.
And the reason why I love talking about that scene, from what we can say about it without giving too much away, is it encompasses the tone of the film, which I think is almost impossible when I try to describe it to people. But the quickest way I said is it's a candy coated shell on a bitter pill that a lot of people need to swallow. And that's the best thing I can tell people, is like, this is what's great about it, is the color and the lightness and the comedy to it. It's over something that is dark and painful, but because it's mixed in like that, it's the flavors you didn't know worked well, like peanut butter and pickles. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that. So I want to ask you though about that tone, because the first time I saw this, I literally said, it's like, I don't know, man, this hit me in so many ways, but I definitely want to have a drink with the woman who wrote this, because she's probably really fun and like to hang out with. I said that immediately, because you have to have a really smart, fun sense of humor to be able to lean into the stuff there is. But I don't know, how do you describe it to people, Emerald? Like when you try to say it, because again, it's difficult to explain to people what the film is, I think, in the abstract.
Yeah, it is really difficult to explain, and I've not got any better at it. I don't think any of us have. But I think usually the thing that comes up, and certainly the thing interestingly in the test screenings that came up most, was dark comedy. So I think I would say like, it's a dark comedy, revenge satire with some romantic comedy thrown in.
Oh my God, yeah. We're going to talk about Beau in a minute, and the men in general that you wrote for in this screenplay, because I love what you did with Cassie. I love what you did with all the characters. But the thing I was thinking about this last time is how you wrote the men, which I found to be just so much more interesting this next time around. But Josey, let's bring it to you, because again, I brought it to that Sundance screening, and this film was acquired by Focus. And I know a lot of people, because of I think how the subject matter is so different, and because Emerald's tone and voice is something that not everybody can get their head wrapped around. I mean, you guys have been very open about, those first early meetings, but talk about how you guys knew Focus were going to be the right partners for this, and how they were going to be able to sort of bring this film out, because I think it has to be with a certain group of people. What was your litmus test to know these are the right people to sort of be the conduit for this story?
Well, I think that kind of journey started, when we partnered with Film Nation, because obviously for us, it was really about finding someone who truly understood Emerald's vision right from the outset. And, obviously people are going to come in with questions about what you want to do. But I think the great thing when Film Nation came on, they didn't question it. They believed truly in what Emerald wanted to do. And we actually sold the movie to Focus when we were still shooting the movie. So again, they really came in with that belief in what we were doing as well, and there weren't really questions, and they really kind of let us get on with it and completely saw kind of what the final product would be. And I remember that first test screening when we sat there and spoke with Focus afterwards, and we had those reactions. We kind of thought, oh God, what does this mean? And they were like, wow, this is great. This is one of the best test screenings we've ever had. And we were like, oh, amazing, that's great. And I think after that Sundance screening, and with the pandemic and our release getting pushed, they were just really great in really wanting to preserve as much of a theatrical experience as we could, and hence why we pushed it off to Christmas. And it was really just an ongoing conversation of keeping the movie in the front of people's minds, whilst kind of thinking about the safest plan to release it. And yeah, I think they just really understood what the movie could say and what it was going to say, and kind of everyone was on the same page. So it was kind of an easy relationship.
I love that. And again, I love the fact that, folks have gotten to see it. It was one of those things where I had it in the back of my mind from when I saw it, and I was just like, wait till y'all get to see this. It's a thing. Carey, I want to bring it to you too, because there's so many great moments with Cassie. I think there's so many things. Like I said, I've now seen this film 4 times, and going back in this last one, I was struck by it. But the scene I was centered in on this one is what you did with Allison, because that character I was obsessed with the first time I watched it, because I thought she was one of the few people that probably ended up being a better person because of what happened and what went through. She had an actual arc, and she moved through, even though she's villainous in a lot of ways. I'm just curious about you two setting that up, because for me personally, both two actresses, I've loved your separate work, and I felt that's got to be such a tennis match day, right? Like you know what you're setting up, both in the first scene, what you're doing to her, and then later what she's doing with you, and what you guys do in those few scenes is incredible. The various places both those characters go to. So yeah, break down how you and Allison sort of approached it.
Well, yeah, Alison, that scene in the restaurant was our first scene, right? That was the first scene in the whole. Yeah, that was day one. So I was blinded by fear. I don't remember much, but I just remember thinking like, what there was. Why did we rehearse with Alison? I don't know if we did. I mean, we didn't really have rehearsal. We sort of sat and read with a couple of actors who were available to come in, but we didn't do any. So I think it was like the first time we just did it completely on the day. So I think it was good. I'd never met Alison. I sort of admired her from afar, but we'd never met. So we didn't really have, I don't know. I just remember it being quite sort of, it really did feel a little bit like a standoff. I don't know. It was sort of it was strange, and she's just so good, and I think we really needed someone on day one who was just going to come in and be incredible and not presenting. And she just came in and blew us away. And all I remember about that day is going up to Emerald at the end of the day and saying, God, she's such a pro. She's amazing. She just came in and just nailed it. And I think I was still very much figuring out lots of stuff about Cassie, like in the moment. So it feels like a bit of a blur that day, but I just remember thinking Alison has just got this down. She's just so good, and she's hilarious and dark and awful, but really human as well. She wasn't playing a sort of villain at all. So yeah, but and then of course we had some distance between that scene and the scene where she comes to the house, which was good. We'd really shot all of the stuff with Bo pretty much by the time she came, so there was a lot of there was as much as you can get kind of history within a couple of weeks of filming, but it felt like there was space and time for that. And so when she came back to shoot that day, it really did feel like she'd sort of been forgotten out the whole story, and then suddenly there she was bringing this thing back and presenting this phone, and and in that scene as well, I mean, she was just extraordinary. So yeah, it was just one of those, when the writing is that good, it's just such a pleasure to get to act with someone like her and just have a go.
It was having a go. You guys really run the gamut. I mean, she puts you on your heels, and you've obviously very much put her on hers. She's got to pretend to be drunk, which I always think is a superpower of actors, like how you pretend to do that. And then in the end, what you do while the camera is just on you, watching that video. And I'm curious, was that always the choice, that it was always going to be just framing you reacting to what you were seeing, or was that thought to be different at one point?
That's probably it.
Yeah, I guess so.
No,
well,
it was always just on Cassie, but I think it was originally it was in the kitchen. I mean, it's one of those. There was some, like, we made small things like that for practical reasons. I'm so glad that we didn't do it in the kitchen. But yes, no, we never want to show that video.
Yeah,
it's much worse to see Cassie's face, I think, in many ways.
Did you set up all the actors with the ADR separately, or did you guys have that when you were shooting it on that day? Because again, for folks that haven't seen it, what Carey does in that moment is literally run the gamut of pain and anger. And it's just, I mean, that's the thing Oscar reels are made of. So I'm just curious what she had to work with really with it.
We had Max, didn't we?
And I mean, this is spoilery, but I'm presuming everyone has seen it, so we can
hope a little bit.
I mean, spoiler alert. Carey, a testament to her genius, was looking at, I think, a photograph of a chair that had been.
It was a video, and it was like the unit base, so it was like a video, but of just a chair outside of a trailer, and the boys were standing off camera, I guess. So bearing in mind we did shoot this in 23 days. What happened is, I think, is what we'd done is we'd recorded them on the phone off camera.
so that Carey could have the right moments to react and all of those sorts of things, you know. So first it was Max and then Beau came in, but the kind of regrettable side of that was she was looking at I think a video of a concrete floor and a white plastic chair, which really go to show, I mean, I don't want to ruin the magic of movie making, but it does go to show how exquisite she is.
No, I want that. I mean, I always, again, I'm a journalist and we kind of live in these a little bit longer, but I love peeling back those layers because it does make it, again, I think more remarkable, the feat. And this was something I was alluding to earlier, but the shoot was on a tight schedule, partially because you were about to give birth to both a film baby and then an actual one. And I'm just curious, both of you, Emerald and also Josey, the logistics of that timeline, like how far did it go from when you guys knew you were going to do it? Because I think you said it was a 10-month process and you just knew that you had to get it done. So how did you guys set that up to know that you would be able to make sure you got it on time? Because to your point, there was not going to be we're going to pick this up later. And so Emerald, I'll start with you, and then Josey, if you maybe want to follow up on how you sort of mapped out knowing that you had to hit this really tight timeline of 23 days.
Well, I mean, Josey's probably the best person to speak to about this, but certainly, I mean, the pregnancy was a kind of extra bit of spice to add to the thing. But the truth of it is because of the location. I'm sorry, because of the fact that we were shooting in Los Angeles and because of our budget, we couldn't afford more than 20. I mean, I don't know if that's sort of crass to say, but would have pregnancy or not, it would have always been that. So I think that in a way that's sort of a relief to me. It wasn't entirely my fault that it was such a short time, but as to the whole kind of process from the beginning, Josey will be able to talk about that much more articulately.
Yeah, Josey, go ahead.
And I think the beauty, well, because before LA, we were kind of exploring a number of different places, but I think the beauty of LA was once we kind of decided, we were like, okay, well, we have to go now. And it just kind of kicked us into it. And we were kind of forced into from making the decision about LA. I think we were in prep like 4 weeks later. So it kind of made us kind of jump into gear. And I think, I think credit to Emerald and her vision. I think during our prep period, I think every HOD, every member of the department knew exactly what we were working towards in terms of the vision. So it was, even though we had a short time period to prep, everyone knew exactly what we were working towards. And, I think that helps with scheduling the movie because, the ADs knew exactly where the time should be spent in certain scenes and which days are more important for the amount of time. And also, I think, for the schedule, it was about minimizing location moves. It was about finding locations where we could shoot multiple things. So if the coffee shop was next door to the pharmacy where we did the scene with Beau and Carey, and then, we found a location where we shot the Carey smashing the car with the train, but also her parents' house and also Alfred Molina's house. So it was about maximizing the potential of each location and just kind of staying put for as much as possible and getting as much as we can from each place.
I love that. Again, incredible. The film feels so much bigger than that. The first time I heard that it was done in 23 days, I was like, no way. This is just too detailed. There were so many things about it that, again, it's a very interesting onion to unpeel. And I encourage anyone who's at least seen it once to watch it again and maybe just watch certain characters through it. The storytelling is there in all of it. One of the things I noticed the first time I saw it is how many times Carey is framed with somebody walking away from her and she's just sitting in isolation, the Molly Shannon scene. And there's so many moments where she's just left on her own to sit with something. And I'm just curious, Frédéric, did you make those decisions in the editing bay? Were all of those set up ahead of time? And were there any other ones that you maybe did? Because I also know there's a lot of angel wings framing. And I know that, you have to it's like peppering, right? You have to know when to push and when to pull forward on that. And so how you and Emerald sort of found that balance. So like with the angel wings or with leaving her alone.
I mean, again, it was very well set up. Everything was very well set up. That's the beauty of working with Emerald, that there's a clear path that was set up on set. That's a clear path set up by Carey. So you follow everything and you try to be on the specific moment where you need that wind to feel that, or you feel There's one shot only with, we're talking about Alison, for example. There's one shot only with the red halo light just above Carey's head. So it was set up, and after it's just finding the good moment where the good line is matching with the intention, and it's a matter of moments. It's really what is great when you work with Emerald is that there's a lot of things set up, and you have the choice. You can go that direction or that direction, but again, everything is set up ahead. That's really what was important on that.
Yeah, I've been blessed. I got sent the Promising Young Woman screenplay, and I got to read it, and I was just look at you. It was great. I was very excited about that. Well, what I was marveling with was that script is bulletproof. I'm just going to put it out there. There's just every little detail is in there, and so I would happily ask you to maybe tell me something that you had from very first moments that you were happy to see made it to the final moment, because I know there's always so many drafts, and something that was a happy accident that maybe happened in the editing bay, Emerald.
Oh God, so much. I mean, I think, well, firstly, we actually didn't have really very many drafts. We had to redraft a little bit. Lucky chap made some amazing kind of amendments right from the first draft, but I think what we shot was really the second draft, honestly. I think, don't you think, Josey? With obviously then we had to make some like production adjustments, but for me, I just write in my head for years, and then finally, so all the drafting is kind of done there. And I was lucky because I worked with amazing people who, you know, we were all kind of on the same page, so any notes were really helpful and great. I didn't have that thing of like pitching an idea and then having to incorporate 1,000 notes before it even gets, you know, actually finished and written down. But there was so much that was exciting. I mean, I think a lot of it was kind of, I think the Paris Hilton, I talk about it a lot, but the Paris Hilton montage scene, which tormented Fred and Emily in the edit because it was so complicated. You know, it was one of those technically, because we shot it so loosely, it was really hard to get continuity. There's so many kind of reasons, but I think the thing is it was one of those things where, because we had to get the rights to the song beforehand, and obviously the song's reasonably expensive, as it should be, because it's a masterpiece, you know, I had to be really certain that it was worth spending this amount of the budget on this scene. And of course, it's hard to explain why it's so important, but I think the day we shot it, lots of people hadn't heard the song before on the crew, and they were just, you could just see everyone kind of like sort of bopping along. And that was I think the fact that that scene has become such a part of the film is so thrilling, because really on paper it might seem a bit kind of out of context in the film, and stuff in the edit. I mean, Fred was just a master at finding, we had so little to work with. I mean, we had so much because Carey's so amazing and everyone's so brilliant, but it's such a plotted film that it's not like you can do that thing you often hear about in the edit where people are like, oh, I just moved this scene to here and this. You just couldn't. So Fred was just so brilliant at finding like the moments of stillness, the moments of to give us some breathing space, going through every bit of footage to find a tiny bit of B-roll that could work, or resequencing something. That stuff saved the film, I think, because it was just so hard to, otherwise it was just like scene after scene after scene after scene relentlessly. So it was just those finessing in between those moments.
Has Paris reached out? This is just me like literally going off the cuff just to ask if Paris Hilton has reached out, because now I'm like, I have to know.
Paris has been so lovely and supportive and amazing. And I met her after the film was shot, but before it came out, at a party, and thanked her for letting us use it. And she sang me Stars Are Blind. She held my hand and sang me Stars Are Blind at this party, and it was the greatest moment of my entire life. She's been wonderful. You know, look at what she's so impressive. The stuff she's doing at the moment is just, you know, she's a very interesting cool person.
Chapters are not finished being written about Paris Hilton. That is absolutely true. And this is just another little chapter. Also, I will say, boo for anyone that says that. If you were a 20-something teenage girl in the early to mid 2000s, that was a bop and a half. Do not let anyone put shade on that Paris Hilton song.
Absolutely.
And Carey, that brings me to what I was going to ask you about, is because that was the moment I fell in love with Beau in that moment. I mean, I had just seen, this was, not that far removed from 8th grade, and I'd been watching his, YouTube comedy and stuff like that. And I fell so in love with him. But I wonder what it was like for you, because when the turn happens, oh my gosh, with him, I felt like you feel when your man that you love betrays you. And I'm just curious, how you, like falling in love with him that deeply, but then knowing where it was going to go.
I just didn't think about it at all. Like, I didn't think about it at all. We didn't talk about it and think about it until the day we shot it. So it was all we fell in love with him when he came in and did a chemistry read with us. Like, when weeks, before it was all cast, he walked out the door and Emerald and I were like, oh, he's just amazing. We just loved him. So I didn't really give it any thought. And I do remember the day that we shot that scene, where she sort of watches and realizes, he came in afterwards for something. He was shooting something in the afternoon, or he was coming in, and we were sitting eating lunch, and he walked past and we were like, "Boo!"
Everyone was like,
yeah. He got like a really horrible welcome to the set that day, where everyone just booed him. And he was like, "Why don't stop? What have you been doing?"
What I remember about that day later is, after that, I went to go and talk to him about something, and we walked past Gregor, who was the amazing man who was in charge of all of the snacks. And Gregor said, "Oh, Emerald, is this your brother?" I just give off brother vibes.
Yeah.
He's a movie star. So sorry.
Oh my gosh. I do want to talk about that day too, because it sounds, based on what you said, but also I could tell just by the way it was shot, it's a technical day in a lot of respect. You've got, playback and mouthing to it. How much choreography did y'all talk about? Or was it really just, hey, have fun? So how did you guys set up the dancing in the pharmacy sort of, that's like a Pretty Woman moment. That's a Dirty Dancing time of your life moment. So
they just got thrown in the deep end.
Emerald put us on either side of an aisle and said, like, just fuck around, basically. And Beau started picking up. One of my favorite things that happened on the whole shoot was when, I think it was Josey, but immediately after we wrapped that scene, everyone was like, "Oh shit, we need to get spam. We need to be allowed to use spam in the film," because he picked up the spam and was like dancing with it. Then for like an hour afterwards, it was like Josey and everyone was ringing, the like spam corporate to try and get approval for us to have a spam. And then we went around on the radio like, "We got spam."
Spam.
But it wasn't. It was. Yeah. I mean, it was just sort of. It was sort of made, and was just sort of dancing, really. And a massive pep talk from Emerald, who told me to stop being pathetic and get myself involved. I was trying not to involve myself at all in the whole thing. And Emerald came and gave me a talking to.
The dynamic that was so important between Carey and Beau and Cassie and Ryan is that Ryan is completely open and unself-conscious because his life has been a cakewalk. And suggesting that Beau's, not making any assumptions about Beau's life, I just mean that, and Cassie is the most deliberate, most contained, most sort of enclosed person. So, there didn't need to be too much of a talk there, because obviously Carey had been Cassie already, that it was kind of obvious that Beau was gonna slut drop the moment he got the opportunity, and that Carey as Cassie was going to be mortified by it. But that's kind of the point was for her to be kind of broken down by the charm of it, and that the embarrassment of it was part of why it was, it's the same with spitting in the coffee. It's about intimacy. It's about somebody showing you they're willing to do something for you that's out of the ordinary. And so it kind of made sense for both of them, I think, to have that. And Carey says she got a very strict pep talk. I don't think it was very strict.
No, it was nice. It was like it's the kind of pep talk that I thrive on.
I beat her around the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, I would need more than a pep talk just to be background on this thing, because I just think that, Carey, you had to approach this role with a level of fearlessness and trust with Emerald and the script and the material. Was there any point though, and it's okay to be like, where you just were like, whew, I don't know, like where you just, because it's a lot. This was so brilliantly written, but you never know how things could be taken. Was there any moment where you were like, I don't know, and then did it push back?
No, I didn't. I mean, I had it when I read it, like I thought, oh, this could be a bit dicey in the wrong hands. And then I met Emerald, and then I was fine. Then I wasn't afraid at all after that. I just knew that she, so it wasn't. I think it's, you always sort of, I suppose you always want to try and take risks or try and do things that you haven't done before, just, for yourself as an actor. But so in that sense, there was sort of that like good, nice, fun risk, but there was no risk to, I knew she only she could do it, and that she would do it brilliantly. And so I didn't have any concern around that. And I knew that this sort of crazy tonal blend or whatever, was not possible in anyone else's hands, but that she could do it. So it was, and in that sense, it was just so, it was so nice, because I just, when you have complete faith in your director and your writer, it's just like massive part of your job done, because so much of the job is second guessing yourself, second guessing decisions other people are making. And I just didn't ever have to worry about that on this. It was just, I could just focus on second guessing myself instead of around other people.
Don't do that. Again, this is going to be incredible. I'm very excited to see where we go for the next 4 weeks. And I'm just really happy this movie has been a part of the conversation this year. It's one of the, I guess, happy sort of ripple effects from this whole situation is I think folks are going to get a chance to move past the big budget stuff to find these incredible stories that maybe wouldn't have had as much oxygen in the normal space. So I love that. Emerald, before we get out of here, we only have a few more minutes, but I want to definitely talk about the writing in particular. The first few times when I was watching the film, I just kept on thinking, wow, how she wrote Cassie and this character and her arc and her grief and all of that. Now I want to talk about these men, because you wrote them in a way that I found to be so almost non-judgmental, but completely authentic, which I think is a weird thing to say considering how horrible these men are. But I think you wrote them in a way, like, I know that dude. And the only reason why you know that dude is because, and how he could, like the conversation that happens between Chris at the end, after, spoiler alert, Cassie has been murdered. They're justifying being able to, dispose of this woman's body. And writing a scene like that in a way that didn't feel cartoonish, but it actually felt like this is what two men would say to each other to justify this horrible behavior, I thought was, in my opinion, one of the reasons why the script is so bulletproof, because that to me is the harder character to write. So how did you do that? How did you bring these men who are supposed to be villainous also to life of, I would say, authenticity?
Thank you so much. I think it helps that they don't think they're villains. That's the main thing. And it's just as much for the actors as it was in the writing. But, the truth of it is all of us are profoundly, at best, embarrassing and transparent, particularly when it comes, talking about seducing people. We're never at our best, I would say. And that is even more apparent when people are kind of engaging in behavior that's sort of abusive. But I think it's not really your job as a writer or a director or an actor to make any moral judgments about anyone. You just have to be honest, I think, up to a point about what we do and how we behave and how we prioritize our feelings and our bodies over other people's. And, when it came to Chris, the Al Monroe scene with his best friend Joe afterwards, in another movie, Cassie is a psycho from the past who has come to cut his head off, and we're on his side and we're going to rejoice in the burning of her body. That's how they see it. From their point of view, she misremembered something that happened in the past, or she blew it out of proportion, and she's a psycho, and what she did was psychotic. And so their relationship to her is not the same as the audience's relationship to her. So that's really, it's always kind of bearing in mind that every single people are not, characters aren't there to just kind of facilitate the protagonist's journey. They're living their own very kind of complicated, rich lives. And part of that is having to admit that up to a point, we are all repellent, some absolutely more than others, but that we're also the heroes of our own stories. So how do you square that when we're all disgusting, but we're all kind of unaware of it up to a point too? I mean,
yeah. I will add to the casting of the quote unquote nice guys. I mean, y'all definitely did a nice tour of like every girl's like mid 2000s heartthrob dream. Y'all did an incredible job. I'm just curious, Emerald, were any of these like, Josey, did y'all have like a list of like, these are the nice guys we would like to like plug in here for one of these scenes? Or because again, Adam Brody was just, when I first saw him in the trailer, I was like, yeah, I got this movie. This movie is, I get that, what they're trying to go for. Was there any other nice guys y'all maybe wanted to add in there, or were the Emerald, I'll start with you.
So many. I mean, look, it's just about, it was just, first and foremost, it's about finding really great actors. Like, they're all sensationally gifted actors, and they're good at comedy, but they're playing it straight. It was people who could play it straight that weren't going to ham it up. And of course, it helps that they're handsome and crushable and soft boys and all the things that they are. Inverted commas, obviously, to those actors. Those are the people in our lives that we forgive because they're cute or they're nice, or so like it had to be. We were never going to be able to cast sort of creepy goblins for this. Yeah. They needed to be the kind of people that actually you might go home with in other circumstances.
Love that. Okay. Josey, go ahead.
No, I think credit to a lot, the cast of the movie. We were still casting the movie whilst we were shooting. So a lot of people, we'd call and say, hey, do you want to do it? And then the next day or 2 days later, they'd be shooting. So, credit to everyone who kind of came in, and everyone just kind of really bought into it and kind of came in and threw themselves into it.
And to the casting department as well.
Yeah.
Who just, again, just got the most unbelievable people to come in to meet for it.
Love that. Well, again, I want to thank you all for the film. Obviously, I'm a bit of a fan. I think it's incredible. One day, I just want to do an entire conversation about your YouTube videos, Emerald. I don't think we're gonna have that very not PG-13 conversation here, but I will literally love if you ever get on this side and we actually can have a normal Oscar season, just sit you down with a beer, break down the YouTube video and Camilla Parker Bowles, but that is for another day. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank American Cinematheque and also, of course, the cast and filmmakers of Promising Young Women. Thank you all.